PRANARAM, 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 কি যেন লুকানো নামে তাই মিষ্ট এত তব নাম।
Most revered President of today's meeting, Srimad Swami Gautamānandaji Maharaj, to deliver the presidential address.
Om Sthapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharmaswarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Namaste Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. My dear Swami Suviranandaji, Swami Suparnanandaji, Swami Balabhadranandaji, Justice Ashok Kumar Ganguly ji, Justice Vishwanath Samadar ji, and my very dear devotees and friends of Sri Ramakrishna, Sharda Devi and Swami Vivekananda. We have been hearing three wonderful speeches, one by Swami Suviranandaji in his welcome address, and just now Swami Balabhadranandaji, and a very nice paper of Pranab Mukherjee, the ex-President of India, was also very interesting. And so now I will present a few of my feelings about this relevance of Swami Vivekananda's Chicago addresses. When I see this big audience, I remember in the life of Swami Vivekananda, in the West when he was in America, he used to announce to some of his devotees, "You come to my speech, I will throw bombs there. You will see my throwing bombs." And the author writes, he really did throw bombs of spiritual nature. To get those bombs burst upon them, people came and came. In big halls could not suffice. So people had to be stopped from coming. When I see this big audience, there are also people saying outside they could not get it. I am reminded of the tremendous influence of Swamiji's words. Whenever I hear the September 11 of 1893 as the date of Swami Vivekananda's lectures, which were historic and joyful in nature, at the Parliament of Religions at Chicago, I am strangely reminded of another tragic September of 2001, which you all know, when some extreme religious fanatics demolished the world's highest World Trade Center building at New York by a suicide plane attack. You all know this. This latter, that is the 2001 September 11, date is remembered by the American embassies all over annually. They organize a memorial day to discuss this event, the cause and how to avoid such future occurrences. I was a speaker at Chennai in the first year Memorial Day held in 2002, held at American Embassy there. And the American Consul General was one Dr. Haynes. I told in the meeting that there was another September 11 of 1893, which should be remembered also in the American history. That is the day Swami Vivekananda spoke in Chicago, Parliament of Religions, held in September 1893, and he mainly stressed on the need for a universal brotherhood based on the eternal spiritual nature of man and of nature. Swami Vivekananda spoke then about man's being divine, and to love and serve man was equal to the service of God, to the worship of God. If the divinity of man and the way to manifest it were have taught as Swamiji advised them to the people, then universal brotherhood would have become a reality now, cutting across all barriers of race, religion and nationality. Every intellectual in this world now knows about the great message of the unity of mankind given by Swami Vivekananda in the Parliament of Religions. In that August assembly, Swami Vivekananda started with the historic opening verse, which you all know, Sisters and Brothers of America, which raised an instant applause of 7,000 elite world audience. He spoke about the spiritual brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity because we, men and women, irrespective of our color or country, race or religion, are children of one God. Then the question arises, what prevents us from feeling this unity? Swami Vivekananda said it was a religious sectarianism, religious bigotry, religious fanaticism. He spoke about how we should learn about other religions also and assimilate the good points of others, and then alone can we evolve a universal religion of love and cooperation acceptable to all humanity. Swami Vivekananda said that the future religion of the intellectuals in the world would be such a religion in which every religious person would help members of other religions to progress in spiritual and secular life also in their own way, in their own method, would assimilate what is good in other religions and become a liberal person. He would embrace all good people and try to do everything to encourage peace and harmony among the followers of religions and cultures of the world. Historians record, we all know now, that the general audience of Parliament of Religion of Chicago welcomed heartily Swami Vivekananda's words of universal brotherhood and universal religion. Swami Vivekananda became instantly, he was accepted as the greatest among the delegates of the Parliament of Religions. He was even hailed as a divine orator. Some wise ones in that assembly said at that time that instead of sending the foreign missionaries to India, which had produced a prophet like Vivekananda, India should send missionaries to our countries. That was how Swami Vivekananda single-heartedly changed the thought current of the West regarding India and her people's whole religion and culture called Sanatana Dharma, or eternal religion, from hatred and apathy to appreciation and love. Thus, many centers to preach Vedanta, the universal religion of the Vedas, as taught by Swami Vivekananda, sprang up in USA and in Europe even during his time. Swami Vivekananda himself admitted that he had sown the seeds of Vedanta in the Western world among a few thousands, and that he expected them to sprout in the near future. Today, we have nearly 40 Vedanta centers in the West and nearly 200 centers all over India and in the Southeast. There is a growing demand for Indian Vedanta centers everywhere. The other day we opened a center at Philippines, another at Dublin in Ireland, another at Zambia in Lusaka in East Africa. All this indicates the tremendous power of Swamiji and how it's attracting people to its fold. Further, the organizing committee which consisted of Mr. Burroughs, Cardinal Gibbons, etc., that which organized the 1893 Parliament of Religions successfully in Chicago, is yet existing and continuing the organizing of similar parliaments of religions in the intervals of 3 or 4 years in different parts of the world. They also hold a mini pre-parliament of religions in India at that time when they organized it in other parts of the world. Why would they organize it in India? It is just to remember the message of the lasting harmony and peace to the world given by the great Swami Vivekananda, who was born in India. They feel that that message has greater relevance to the world today than what it had then in 1893. Again, we all now know how the religious fanaticism destroyed the World Trade Center, which I referred, in September 11, 2001, and has given a violent jolt to the socio-religious thinking of the Western and the Eastern world. Now all Western and Eastern countries, and they all want urgently freedom from religious fanaticism so that humanity can live in peace. We can clearly see that Swami Vivekananda's way is the only way to achieve that. Hence we see this worldwide celebration of Vivekananda's message given at the Parliament of Religion at Chicago in 1893 September. All over the world they are celebrating this addresses of Swamiji. Now coming to India, we, the followers of Swami Vivekananda, in each 29 states of Indian Federation are celebrating the same by taking Vivekananda's message to the common people of our country. During the 125th year celebration of Swami Vivekananda's Chicago addresses in 2018, in Tamil Nadu alone, where I am there, the Ramakrishna Math Chennai has organized various youth functions like essay writing, painting and speaking competitions among 12.5 lakhs of college students, and from whom 20,000 art pieces were received, more than 2 lakhs essays, poems, etc. about Swamiji's speeches were received. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself addressed the concluding youth conference of 4,000 youth held on September 11, 2018 at Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. See the tremendous influence of Swamiji's addresses. Dear friends, I want to conclude by giving a short idea of what Swami Vivekananda spoke at the Parliament of Religions in 1893, more than a century ago. His first lecture was on September 11, as we all know, famous for his opening words, Sisters and Brothers of America. He thanked the world in that lecture of 7,000 selected audience in the name of India's most ancient order of monks, in the name of India's eternal religion, which he called the mother of religions, and then in the name of millions and millions of Hindus of all classes and sects. He said that Hinduism not only tolerated but accepted all religions as truth. He prayed that all fanaticism, either through sword or pen, should disappear to save our world from repeated violence and bloodshed. In his second lecture on 15th September 1893, he talked on why we disagree. He spoke about religious sectarianism, which he compared to the mentality of a frog in the well, which thought that his well was all that was in the universe. In the third lecture, on 19th September, titled Paper on Hinduism, was a marvelous presentation of Hinduism as based on the truth of spiritual realizations of sages of the Vedas. He said that because it was based on the undeniable human experience of the truths of every religion, namely God, soul, and creation, it has stood the test of time of thousands of years of criticisms and persecution by materialists, by atheists, by agnostics, etc., etc. It has proved itself as rational as any of the material sciences are. He concluded that Hinduism, called more correctly as Vedanta, can stand the scrutiny of the most recent discoveries of science and thus had no fear of reason. In his fourth lecture of 20th December, titled Religion is not the crying need of India, he said that to preach religion to a starving people is futile. Don't give stones where people need bread. He said it was the hero's admonition to the wrongdoings of foreign missionaries in India who did not help victims of famine but erected churches instead. In his fifth lecture on September 26th, titled Buddhism, Fulfillment of Hinduism, he said that Vedanta proclaimed that God alone lives in every being. Buddha applied this to practical life and advised the uplifting of all the lowly and the neglected people, including women, by selfless service and by imparting high morality to them with love and compassion. Thus, the teachings of Buddha were supplementary and never contradictory to the tenets of Hinduism. His last and sixth lecture on 27th September was a master speech where he argued for a universal religion which would be a happy synthesis of the noble teachings of all religions minus their sectarianism. He prophesied more than 125 years back that all religions would be compelled by social forces in the very near future to accept the principles of a harmony of religions, and said, soon will be written on the banner of every religion, help and not fight, assimilation and not destruction, and harmony and peace and not dissension. Today, we are seeing his ideas being worked out through so many world organizations like United Nations Organization, Interfaith Dialogues by various religions, International Peace Prizes, etc., etc. May Swami Vivekananda's message bring lasting peace to our world. Let us pray to Swami Vivekananda to inspire and guide us all to work hard to attain this goal in our own humble way, that is, through leading a life of love, compassion, charity, and selfless service to our fellow men. Thank you all for your patient hearing and encouragement. Jai Vivekananda. Om Shanti Shanti.
We have just heard the presidential address. Our most respectful pranam to Revered Maharaj Ji. May I now request our guest of honor, Honorable Justice Vishwanath Shamadda, to talk to us.
Ardent followers of Swami Vivekananda, which includes revered members of the monastic order on the dais, Honorable Justice Ganguly, of the dais, members of the monastic order of Ramakrishna Math and Mission, Sharada Math and Ramakrishna Sharada Mission, all those who have taken time out on a weekday to be present in this hall of the Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture, to participate in the concluding program of the 125th anniversary of Swami Vivekananda's Chicago address. I have decided to speak in English only to have a wider reach. And my focus today would be on one of the facets of Swami Vivekananda's mission to churn and revitalize the youth. And I begin with a quote. My faith is in the younger generation, the modern generation. Out of them will come my workers. They will work out the whole problem like lions. Swamiji expressed this confidence in the youth of this country exactly 50 years before the end of the British rule, while speaking to a mammoth gathering of youngsters in Madras. Swamiji himself was the embodiment of youth, dynamism and vibrancy. The life and ideals of Swamiji are the greatest inspiration as of today for the youth of our nation. Who else could have been so concerned about youth than Swamiji himself, who died in a short life of 39 years, 5 months and 22 days. This great man conquered the entire world with his message. And that message came again and again. I need not tell this august gathering that many great personalities in India and across the world became deeply inspired by Swamiji, and they are even today being inspired. The writings of Swamiji can ignite the minds of the reader. Someone rightly pointed out that if you are lying down and reading Swamiji's work, you will instantly sit upright. If you are sitting and reading his writings, then you will stand up, and if you read him standing, you will at once set out towards your mission. This is nothing but the influence of Swamiji's lively message. Anybody who has come in to either direct or indirect contact has witnessed an ocean of change in his or her life. Today, the youth of this country faces various challenges, but I am certain that the message of Swamiji has the power to wonderfully guide them into the future. Swamiji always held that the real birth of the individual takes place when the purpose of his life germinates. He believed that he who does not have a purpose is nothing but a walking, talking corpse. Till the purpose is not recognized, life is absolutely useless. Our youngsters, therefore, should decide what they want to do in this life. Right from our childhood, we are constantly chained by the thought of careers or what we want to be and in what process. And in that process, forget some of the finer aspects that life has to offer to us. It is extremely important not to decide the purpose of life with the narrow objective to be something or the other. Think of doing, not becoming, and in this process, you will certainly become something. Once the purpose of life is clear, all actions of life become driven by that purpose. I'm sure most of you know that since 1985, the Government of India observes 12th January, the birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda, as National Youth Day. I would like to quote from the Government of India's communication and I quote, "It was felt that philosophy of Swamiji and the ideals for which he lived and worked could be a great source of inspiration for the Indian youth," unquote. Let us look at certain facts. India is one of the youngest nations in the world, with about 65% of its population under 35 years of age. It is expected that by the year 2020, the population of India would have a median age of 28 years only, as against 38 years for the United States of America, 42 years for China, and 48 years for Japan. Therefore, the youth are indeed the most dynamic and vibrant segment of the population in any country. Swamiji once said, "Whatever you think, that you will be. If you think yourselves weak, weak you will be. If you think yourselves strong, strong you will be." He also said, "See for the highest, aim at that highest, and you shall reach the highest." His message, always, invariably always, was simple yet powerful. Vivekananda conveyed his ideas directly to the people, especially to the youth. His message broke the shackles of caste and creed and spoke of a language of universal brotherhood. What he said captures the great importance of his ideas and ideals among the youth in our country today. He personified the eternal energy of the youth and their restless quest for truth. It is entirely fitting, therefore, that 12th January, the birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda, is observed as National Youth Day to rekindle the eternal message of this great patriot and son of India. The famous words, "Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached." This thunderous and eternal message from Upanishads, uttered in equally thunderous voice by Swami Vivekananda, freely, frequently and vigorously, more than a century ago, roused the Indian nation from her deep slumber of centuries and called upon her countrymen, especially the youth, to give their best for India's spiritual and national renaissance. Inflamed and inspired by this clarion call, a generation of our people dedicated their lives to the revival of India as a nation. Hundreds of them embraced death and suffering during the struggle for independence. While in USA, at the time he had gone to attend the Chicago Conference, International Parliament of Religion, he wrote to an Indian youth, "I may perish of cold and hunger in this land, but I bequeath of you, young man, this sympathy, this struggle for the poor, the ignorant, the oppressed. Vow then to devote your whole lives to the cause of the redemption of these 300 millions going down and down every day." Swami Vivekananda had tremendous faith in the youth of the country. He considered them as the greatest asset and wealth of India. He believed that they were full of energy, idealism, enthusiasm, hope, optimism, and adventurous spirit. He often expressed that if we were to win back our ancient glory, power, and prosperity, it is in the hands of our youth. It is the youth of the country, he said, who can educate and inspire the masses. It is the youth of the country who can rouse the spiritual consciousness of the people and awaken them to a sense of their own human dignity and worth. In one of his inspiring messages to the youth, he says, teach yourself, teach everyone his real nature. Call upon the sleeping soul and see how it awakes. Power will come, glory will come, goodness will come, purity will come, and everything that is excellent will come when this sleeping soul is roused to self-conscious activity. Swamiji exhorted his youth to be strong and fearless, kind and benevolent, strictly moral and of high character. He desired them to possess muscles of iron and nerves of steel, inside which dwells the mind of the same material. He wanted them to reject anything that makes them weak physically, intellectually and spiritually. He asked the youth to build up their character and manifest their real nature, which is pure. Neither money pays, nor name, nor fame, nor learning. It is character that can cleave through the adamantine walls of difficulty. Bear this in mind, he said, and it was his earnest advice to the youth. His vision of India was to have a new society by the vision of dignity of man, his freedom and individuality, his strength and his capacity to love and serve human beings through an egalitarian society free from notions of high or low. The youth of the country has the biggest role, therefore, to play in Swami Vivekananda's idea of a rejuvenated India. He had utter faith in the youth of the country, fearless youth with insurmountable energy, free from all selfish thoughts, ready to struggle, ready to sacrifice. Only such youth can sustain the journey of taking India from the depths of degradation to the pinnacle of its glory, according to Swamiji. His consistent invocation to the youth of the country was to go back to their cultural roots, believe in it, and feel proud of it, to utilize its values for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many. As Buddha said, Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya. His messages and teachings, which revolutionized the nation, laid the foundation of the uprising of a new India to where we belong, led by the physically and mentally strong and committed youth. Unlike the materialism of the West, India's psyche is spiritual in nature, yearning for exploring the inner self, purifying the inner self and creating men of strong moral character. It is the land of renunciation, the land where all persecuted and tormented got shelter, the land which gave birth to innumerable great philosophies of non-violence, which he believed will bring to an end of all uncharitable feeling between people. In January 1894, and I'll conclude with this, Swamiji wrote a letter to a Madras disciple. My whole ambition in life is to set in motion a machinery which will bring noble ideas to the door of everybody, and let men and women settle their own faith. Let them know what our forefathers as well as other nations have thought on the most momentous question of life. We are to put the chemicals together. The crystallization will be done by nature according to her laws. Keep the motto before you, elevation of the masses without injuring their religion. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, sir, for your bold, inspiring words. May I now request Justice Ashok Kumar Ganguly, former chairman of the West Bengal Human Rights Commission and former judge of the Supreme Court of India, to talk to us.
Good evening. I am beholden to the authorities of Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture and also to the august personalities of Swami Gautamananda and Swami Suvirananda, respectively the Vice President and the General Secretary of Ramakrishna Mountain Mission, for giving me an opportunity to speak before you this evening on the relevance and the continued significance of the Chicago speech of Swami Vivekananda after 125 years. May I start by offering my respect to Justice Samadha, the dignitaries on and off the dais. I see Justice Swamiji Banerjee and various other revered monks of the Ramakrishna order, the devotees, friends, and respected members of this gathering. Before I say anything, you have been listening, along with me also, I was listening to various speeches on Swamiji. Now, if I am asked to encapsulate the spirit of Swamiji in one word, it's a very difficult task. But I would venture to say that Swamiji is a person about whom there is everything positive. There is no negative vibe in his life or in his thinking. Even in the darkest of clouds, you would find the sunshine. Speaking for myself, I may say that when I feel extremely despondent and mentally very tired and exhausted, if I pick up one of his volumes and go through the same, I do not know how time passes. But after half an hour or even less than that time, I feel a strange energy in my mind. And I started looking at the glass that it is half full and not half empty. My entire perception changes. Such is the infectious influence of his spirit. And I am sure all of you present here have the same feeling. Now here, I have just planned my small address in a different way. I have not tried to tell before you what was said by Swamiji in that famous Parliament of Religion. Because many speakers before me have done that formidable task very admirably. I will try to explain in my very humble way the importance of that Parliament of Religion, the prevailing condition in these two countries at the time when the Parliament of Religion was held, the purposes of Swamiji for attending the religion, and then the impact which was created by his tremendous speech, and which is still continuing both in America and in his own country. And I shall conclude with the dream of Swamiji. So may I start? Before one speaks on Swamiji's speech, one must reflect on the importance of this Parliament of Religion. Chicago's Parliament was not a national but a global Parliament, held to celebrate 400th anniversary of discovery of America by Columbus. The purpose of convening this Parliament was to offer a common platform to discuss the relative merits of different religious faiths and to declare the superiority of Christianity. But the Parliament ended with a different note on the harmony of all religions and acceptance of all religions as equal. This was possible for the divine participation and the brilliant presentation by Swamiji on his views on religion. In his farewell address, Swamiji accepted this by saying, and I quote, Ashoka's council was a council of Buddhist faith. Akbar's, though more to the purpose, was only a parlor meeting. It was reserved to America to proclaim to all quarters of the globe that Lord is in each religion. I am advisedly using the expression that Swamiji's participation in the parliament was divine. He attended and gave the highest number of lectures in the parliament without any invitation and credentials. That apart, but for providential intervention, we could not have overcome the stumbling obstacles that came in his way of his reaching Chicago, far less participating in the parliament. We all know the details of those incidents, and I am not going to repeat them in my speech. We must first appreciate the condition at the time in our country vis-à-vis the position in America. In the last decade of the 19th century, British colonial power was at its peak in India. Simultaneously, exploitation of the masses, both in the hands of our colonial masters and their collaborators, namely the native landlords and the moneyed classes, went on without much resistance from any quarter. The social life at that time in our country was riddled with class division, and in view of widespread illiteracy and superstition, and sectarian approach firmly gripped the mind of the common man. After the demise of his guru, Ramakrishna Paramahansa on 16th August 1886, in the Baranagar Mott, Swamiji with his brother disciples were spending days in chill penury and faced a grim struggle for survival. During this period, he realized the religion has to be preached by frontally combating the problems of the common man and not by running away from them. About 1891, he decided to go on a pilgrimage to see for himself the conditions of his fellow countrymen, and traveled to various parts of the country and was appalled at the poverty, illiteracy, backwardness of the people. His heart bled at their misery, and at the same time he became very critical of the exploitative ways by which the upper caste Indians tortured the poor and the downtrodden. He realized and declared, till the lot of the downtrodden is not improved, till they are not educated and allowed to live a normal life, India cannot improve. And there is no hope for the country. He was so preoccupied with their problems that he declared that those well-placed Indians who do not try to improve the lots of the people who are not so advantageous as they are traitors to the nation. He himself declared, and I quote, "Who cares for your bhakti and mukti? I will go to hell cheerfully 1,000 times if I can rouse my countrymen, immerse in tamas, and make them stand on their feet," unquote. So when he heard of this parliament of religion, he wanted to go there for the twin purposes of purging Hindu religion of its dross and proclaim to the whole world its pristine essence of humanism, so that the lot of his countrymen whose life forces religion can be improved, and they can realize the meaning of life. And India, which has gone into a shell as the oyster does, and is suffering like a frog in the well, can be extricated from its miserable position, and the nation can be reborn. At that time in America, anti-slavery movement gained a momentum with the publication in 1831 of William Lloyd Garrison's newspaper, Liberator. Books such as Uncle Tom's Cabin stimulated anti-slavery movement in the North. That book supported civil war and was acknowledged by Abraham Lincoln for doing the same. On the spiritual side, thoughts of Emerson and Thoreau gave America some respite in the morbid haste which often developed into the frantic rhythm of modern civilization. The chase after materialistic prize was discouraged by both these thinkers, and Whitman's Leaves of Grass as a collection of poems mirrored the mood of the time. Leaves of Grass is very aptly described as a mixture of Bhagavad Gita and the New York Herald. The Parliament of Religion was therefore a perfect meeting ground for Swami Vivekananda, who was carrying with him the Catholic teachings of Upanishad and the Gita with a heart which was bleeding at the miseries of his countrymen, whose sectarian minds are too clouded by illiteracy and superstition for these holistic teachings to penetrate. And with the divine help, he was carrying a mission to a global platform in a land which was vocal about the abolition of slavery and was slowly coming to terms with values of mental emancipation. But Swamiji said that this parliament is known to us, but impact is something which is wholly unexpected. Hearing his address, he was called a cyclonic Hindu. Neither before nor after him, any uninvited, unknown speaker in a parliament of world-famous scholars succeeded in single-handedly changing the course of the entire discourse in the parliament. The quality which was most resplendent in his address was the clarity of his thought and the fearlessness in his approach, and that too coming from a person who hails from the land of the natives. So fearlessly did he castigate sectarianism, fanaticism, religious bigotry and violence that it stunned the whole world. After hearing Swamiji, the Western world started respecting Indian culture and our superior spiritual strength. His speech created such an impact in America that the requests of his students' admirers had to stay back in America for 4 years to deliver hundreds of lectures throughout America to explain the essence of Hindu philosophy, to awaken the spiritual consciousness in the modern world. He was rightly called by A.L. Basham, the great historian, that Swami Vivekananda will be remembered as the molder of the modern world. Swamiji believed the Renaissance preceded revolution. By Renaissance, he meant spiritual awakening. But the dynamism of his speech was such as he could combine both Renaissance and revolution practically in one go. What he addressed was not religion only, but spirituality. That is why he could cut across the barriers of nationality and the boundaries of religion to reach every receptive mind on the values of life and living. Here what was said by the Jesuit priest Martin is very pertinent, and I quote, "It was not so much what Swamiji said, it was the way he made it fit so remarkably well with the journey of science and humanism towards a new idea of material perfection. For he supplied the notion that what mattered was not religion in general, or any religion in particular, but spirit. Its appeal was that he harped on the dignity of man, the privileged power of his reason, and he placed total trust only on human nature, so that if any person were free from the tankering and tampering by organized religion, he could achieve his own happiness. This explains why Swamiji believed that every soul is potentially divine. Soul is always equated with spirituality. The editorial comment Back home, his address had a tremendous impact on Indians. The editorial comment on 1st September 1894, which came out in Amrita Bazar Putrika, then the leading daily, correctly summed up the situation. I quote from the editorial comment. He has done much more to elevate our nation in the estimation of the people of the West than what has hitherto been done by all our political leaders put together. His speech actually initiated the fight for national freedom. Dr. Ramesh Chandra Mazumdar, the famous historian, said, and I quote, Swami Vivekananda will be called the father of modern Indian nationalism. He largely created it and also embodied in his own life its highest and noblest elements. Bipin Chandra Pal, the famous orator and a national participant in our freedom, said, and I quote, this new nationalist movement in India is essentially a spiritual movement. He is the first to inculcate the fire of patriotism amongst Indians. The famous revolutionary Hemchandra Ghosh said, and I quote, Swami Vivekananda appeared to be more a political prophet than a religious teacher. So it is not a matter of coincidence that in the search of the belongings of every revolutionary in British India, police recovered Swamiji's speeches and works, and his life was also established. During his life was also established the first revolutionary center in the name of Anushilan Samiti on 24th March 1902. And his favorite disciple, Sister Nivedita, used to frequent this center. Swamiji himself said, and I quote his own words, the country has become a powder magazine. A little spark might ignite it. I will see revolution in my lifetime, unquote. It is said of Swamiji that Vivekananda did not die in 1902. He lived till 1946. His ideas, his sadhana flowed in different channels to enrich and vitalize the nation and entitled it to win the first round. With Gandhi and Bose closes the epoch which he had opened. A new chapter has begun. The future will show whether his soul has died or it reincarnates to spiritualize the nation, to judge it to the conquest of mankind. This was written by Atindranath Bose in his studies on Bengal Renaissance. But in my view, till today, the poor people of India are living under extreme misery. Things have not changed much. Swamiji visualized that India will, and I again quote him, arise out of the peasant's cottage, grasping the plough, out of the huts of the fisherman, the cobbler and the sweeper. He wanted, let her spring from the grocer's shop, from beside the oven of the fritter seller. Let her emanate from the factory, from marts and from markets. I think his soul will live and will work and will not rest till India of his dream dawns on the horizon. Long live Swamiji.
Thank you, sir, for your intellectually so stimulating words. এখন ধন্যবাদ জ্ঞাপন দেবেন ইনস্টিটিউটের সম্পাদক স্বামী সুপর্ণানন্দজি মহারাজ। ধন্যবাদ জ্ঞাপনের সঙ্গে সঙ্গেই আমাদের আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের সমাপ্তি।
ওম জননী শারদাম দেবী রামকৃষ্ণন জগদ্গুরু পাদপদ্মিতে স্নিগ্ধা প্রণমামি মুহুর্মুহুঃ। আমরা এই পর্যন্ত 6টি বক্তৃতা শুনলাম এবং প্রত্যেকটি বক্তৃতায় সুচিন্তিত এবং সুন্দরভাবে বিশ্লেষণ করা হয়েছে। আপনারা দেখবেন বিশ্লেষণাত্মক, ক্রিটিক্যালি এক্সামিন করেছেন প্রত্যেকেই। এবং আজকের বিচারপতিদ্বয় তারা যেভাবে মাত্র 8-10 ঘন্টা সময় পেয়েছেন, আমরা সময় তাদের আগে জানাতে পারিনি, যেহেতু প্রাক্তন প্রেসিডেন্ট আসছেন না, প্রণববাবু আসছেন না, জানতে পারার পর তাদের সাথে যোগাযোগ করি। কিন্তু এত অল্প সময়ের মধ্যে আমাদের সামনে স্বামীজির লেখা থেকে, স্বামীজি সম্বন্ধে তারা যেরকম জ্ঞানগর্ভ পাণ্ডিত্যপূর্ণ বিশ্লেষণ করলেন আলোচনাটি, আমাদের বক্তৃতাটি, আমরা সত্যি অবাক হয়েছি। তাদের আমরা ধন্যবাদ জানাই, প্রণাম জানাই আমাদের পরম পূজনীয় ভাইস প্রেসিডেন্ট মহারাজজিকে, প্রণাম জানাই আমাদের সাধারণ সম্পাদক মহারাজজিকে, সুবীরানন্দজিকে প্রীতি ভালোবাসা জানাই, বলভদ্রানন্দজিকে এবং আরও যারা সব সন্ন্যাসী রয়েছেন তাদের সকলকে প্রণাম জানাই। আর যারা মাতাজি আছেন তাদেরও শ্রদ্ধাপূর্ণ প্রণাম জানাই, ভক্তমণ্ডলী এবং আমাদের যারা শুভার্থী সব এসেছেন সুধীবৃন্দ, তাদের সকলকে ধন্যবাদ প্রণাম জানাই। স্বামীজি সম্বন্ধে সত্যেন্দ্রনাথ দত্ত একটা কবিতা লিখেছিলেন, তার প্রথম 2 লাইন বলছি, জনমিলা হেতা বিবেকানন্দ দেশ আত্মার কুণ্ঠা হরি, এ পুরীর রাজপথের ধুলিরে কহিমরা রাজেশ্বরী। আমি আবার রিপিট করছি, জনমিলা হেতা বিবেকানন্দ দেশ আত্মার কুণ্ঠা হরি, এ পুরীর রাজপথের ধুলিরে মোরা কহি রাজেশ্বরী। সেই যুগে যে সময় বিবেকানন্দ সম্বন্ধে সকলে সেরকম উচ্চ ধারণা ছিল না, সেখানে এই সত্যেন্দ্রনাথ দত্ত এই কবি অন্য একটা পরিবেশ বা মণ্ডলের মধ্যে, পরিবেশের ভেতরে থেকে বিবেকানন্দকে সর্বোচ্চ সম্মান জানিয়েছেন। এই রাজপথের ধুলি রাজেশ্বরী এত পবিত্র, তিনি আমাদের লজ্জাহরণ করেছেন, আমাদের সমস্ত কুণ্ঠা হরণ করেছেন, আমাদের সম্মান জানিয়েছেন, সম্মান দিয়েছেন। তার সম্মানে এক জয় আমরা সম্মান পেয়েছি। তিনি যে কথাটা বলেছিলেন সেটা এই রকম, সবার রাস্তা এক নয়, তা বলে সব রাস্তা মিথ্যা নয়। এই কথাটা বলার জন্য পৃথিবীতে আর কেউ প্রস্তুত ছিলেন না, তাকেই বলতে হচ্ছে। এবং সেই পথ ধরে আমরা এগিয়ে চলেছি। মাঝে মাঝে অ্যাভারেশনস আসে, আমরা 2001 সালে এই 11 সেপ্টেম্বর সেরকম একটি বিস্ফোরণ দেখেছি, কিন্তু এগুলো অ্যাভারেশন। কোনো মহল থেকে কিন্তু এটিকে স্বাগত জানানো হয়নি, বরং যারা এটা করেছে তারা নিন্দার পাত্র হয়েছে এবং হবে, চলবে এটি। তার মানে কাজ শুরু হয়েছে, চলছে। এ নিয়ে হতাশা প্রকাশ করার কোনো কারণ নেই। অনেকেই হয়তো বলেন যে এগুলো কেন হলো, হবে। বিকার দিয়ে মানুষের যেন বিচার না হয়, যখন সে সুস্থ থাকবে তখনই তার আমরা বিচার করব। এরা অসুস্থ মানুষ, কিন্তু প্রত্যেকটি শুভবুদ্ধি সম্পন্ন মানুষ আজকে উঠে দাঁড়িয়েছে, এই বিষয়ে কোনো সন্দেহ নেই। এবং স্বামীজি এই আশ্বাসটাও দিয়েছিলেন যে কোনো ধর্ম লোপ পাবে না, সব ধর্মকে জাগতে হবে এবং সব ধর্মই জাগবে বিপুল সম্ভাবনা নিয়ে। সবাই জেগেছে এবং কোথাও না কোথাও কিছু এক্সেস হচ্ছে, কিন্তু সেটাকে কাউন্টার অ্যাক্ট করার জন্য কিন্তু হিংসার প্রকাশ আমরা বরদাস্ত করি না। এটা করার চেষ্টা হয়েছে, কিন্তু আমরা নিন্দাবাদ করেছি। এই যে পরিবর্তন মানসিকতা, স্বামীজির জন্যই হয়েছে। একই জয়, একটা নতুন পৃথিবী জেগে উঠেছে। আমরা সেই জন্য স্বামীজির নামে সমবেত হই। আপনারা এসেছেন, আপনারা না এলে আমাদের এই সভা হয় না। আপনাদের ধন্যবাদ দিতেই হবে। আপনারা এসেন্সিয়াল কন্ডিশন, অ্যাবসলিউটলি নেসেসারি আপনারা। আর আমরা এখানে যে কজন আছি মঞ্চে, বহুদিন ধরে কারা কারা মঞ্চে থাকবেন, কি আলোচনা হবে, এই নিয়ে ভাবনা চিন্তা হয়েছে। এর পিছনে যারা আছেন তাদের সকলকে আমি ধন্যবাদ জানাই। এখানে আমাদের রমেশ মহারাজ আছেন, তার দলবল আছেন, তারাও ধন্যবাদের পাত্র, পিছনে থেকে কাজ করছেন। আমি এক জায়গায় শুনেছিলাম, একজন বলেছিলেন, কে বলেছিলেন আমার মনে নেই, কথাটা আমাকে তাড়া করে বেড়ায়, এবং সেই জন্য আমি ধন্যবাদ দেওয়ার যদি সুযোগ পাই আমি খুব খুশি হই। নো ডিউটি ইজ মোর আর্জেন্ট দ্যান দ্যাট অফ রিটার্নিং থ্যাঙ্কস। আর আপনারা এর মর্মার্থ বুঝবেন। ঠাকুরের কথামৃতে ঠাকুর একবার খুব ভালো কথা বলেছিলেন, ভক্তরা খুব আনন্দ প্রকাশ করেছিলেন। তো ঠাকুর ততোধিক আনন্দ প্রকাশ করে বলেছিলেন, তাহলে একটা থ্যাংক ইউ দাও। থ্যাংক ইউ দাও, এটা ঠাকুরই আমাদের বলে গেছেন থ্যাংক ইউ দিতে হবে। সেই জন্য এই পদ পেয়ে আমি খুব খুশি। আমি কর্তৃপক্ষের কাছে, সুবিধানন্দজির কাছে অত্যন্ত কৃতজ্ঞ। অনুষ্ঠানটি এখানে হচ্ছে বলে না, আমাকে বললেন ধন্যবাদ দিতে হবে। ঠিক আছে, আমি আপনাদের সকলকে
প্রাণারাম 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 প্রাণারাম। কি যেন লুকানো নামে তাই মিষ্ট এত তব নাম। প্রাণারাম 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 প্রাণারাম।